Humanity has colonized the solar system and has established mining operations throughout the galaxy. The new economic bloc, or NEB, is the largest corporation which controlled everything. And on the planet Sirius 6b, baronium was discovered, which will solve Earth's energy crisis. But mining baronium releases lethal radiation, so the miners formed a union called the Alliance to protest against NEB. The NEB, however, declared war on the Alliance and decimated Sirius 6b with nuclear bombing raids on the civilian population, killing millions. Now, with the war reaching its 10th year, the survivors are faced with a new threat beyond imagination. A lone NEB soldier ambles his way towards an Alliance base. This confuses the Alliance forces and they hesitate to fire, but another danger shows up. The sand suddenly comes to life and hastily makes its way to the soldier. He raises an object towards the Alliance bunker, but a mysterious weapon leaps from the ground screaming and slices the man's arm off. The soldier tries to defend himself, but the swarm efficiently dismantles him, much to the Alliance's horror. After it was over, they decided to go out and retrieve the object and narrowly saving it before the machines clean up the body parts. Chuck hurriedly brings the cylinder to Commander Joe and after some bit of fiddling around, managed to open it. It is a message from NEB Commander Richard Cooper requesting immediate peace negotiations. It even outlined the location of the NEB stronghold where they're requesting Joe's attendance. Joe is of course skeptical since it's been at least 6 months since they last saw a NEB soldier and this could be a trap. But he reported the message to the Alliance Secretary regardless. Alliance Secretary Green confirms Joe and Chuck's message that NEB has also approached him requesting a truce. A baronium deposit was found on Triton 4 and this time without radiation, and NEB is offering the Alliance the contract to mine it. The Secretary is hopeful that the war is at its end. But he warned Commander Joe to not head to or make contact with the NEB stronghold in Sirius 6b. After Secretary Green has signed out, Joe and Chuck go for a drink to discuss their options. And just when they have started to relax, a loud crash rocks the base from the outside. Everyone goes outside to find a massive transport ship in ruins. They all check for signs of life, but Joe and Chuck instead stumbles a more sinister find: nuclear warheads. As Joe wonders why a mere transport ship would carry such arsenal, the sand machines word to life and heads towards one of the survivors. It begins chewing up one of the dead, and just as it flies towards the man next, Joe shoots it in time. The man's name is Ace due to his skills as a marksman, and he asks about the machines. Joe explains that the autonomous mobile swords were developed by the Alliance to assist with the war effort, but everyone calls them screamers due to their high-pitched noise. Joe was in the process of studying a screamer from earlier, and this one even nearly injures Ace, who thought it was destroyed. Joe discovers that this particular machine has somehow modified itself. Chuck then enters the room and grilled Ace on why a civilian transport ship was carrying a nuclear weapon and soldiers. But Ace was the only survivor of that crash, and he admits that they're on their way to Triton 4 to attack a NEB base since there is baronium there. Joe learned about the baronium deposit from Secretary Green, but Ace tells him that Green has been dead for 2 years now. This complicates things now at the realization that the hologram of the Secretary was fake. So Joe decides to go to the NEB command post to get to the bottom of this once and for all. He picks Ace to accompany him on his journey, and Chuck gives him his very own tab device. This device protects the wearer from screamers since they only attack living things, and the device masks a person's heart rate. And the two embark on their journey across the barren wasteland that is Sirius 6b. They both make a pit stop to smoke red cigarettes, as this neutralizes the baronium radiation from their lungs. Joe also tells a brief history about the screamers and how they started to manufacture themselves, and also when they started evolving, and no one knows where they come from. A noise from nearby interrupted Joe, and they both scramble for cover. Joe tries to inch in closer and gets Ace to cover him. But what came out of the ruins wasn't an enemy, but rather a little boy. The boy's name is David, and Joe asks him how he survived all this time on his own with all the screamers out and about. But the kid remained quiet. Regardless, they both decide to take the child with them. They set up camp that night, and Joe took this time to report back to Alliance headquarters. Although the line was choppy, Chuck was able to report that a new transport ship came in, and Joe reports that they're 4 hours away from Neb Command. While Ace was sleeping, he was nearly killed by a screamer because he took out his tab device. Joe was furious at him but is now more interested in the upgraded version of this screamer, which is now looking more beast-like. They reach Neb Command the next day, but while they were being watched by Neb soldiers, one of them shoots David. Joe reaches out for David but is horrified to discover that the boy is a screamer. He calls Ace over, but while he's taking out the screamer CPU, it suddenly attacks Ace and he barely manages to escape. Becker approaches them and explains that this new type of screamer tags along with people so it can be let in the bunker. Then that's when the killing starts. He invites the two to talk in their bunker despite Ross's protests. Inside, Joe meets Jessica, who informed him that the Neb commander, Richard Cooper, who invited him here, is probably dead in the command bunker since it was raided by David's screamers, but she can't confirm it. Jessica offers to take Joe to the command bunker in exchange for a ride back to Earth. Joe instead offers to take her back to Alliance headquarters because nobody is going to Earth since the Neb and Alliance forces will start another war on Triton 4 and has forgotten everyone on Sirius. Everyone packs up for the treacherous hike ahead and headed down towards the tunnels they go until they eventually arrive. They all explore the place a little bit and find the place empty. Ross is starting to lose his mind after seeing the horrors before him. Joe reaches a terminal and tries to connect with the Neb commander, but they were interrupted by a lone screamer. They all rush to hide and watch while the screamer downloads schematic data from the terminal. After it has left, everyone comes out, but the screamer returned and cornered Ross. Ace shields him with his tab, but the screamer attacks the moment they relaxed. Ross shoots and destroys it, but also destroys the terminals, much to Joe's disappointment. The noise attracted more screamers, so Joe orders everyone to flee while he remained. Joe uses one of the computers to confirm the screamer CPU chips he has. He finds out about the Type 1 animal screamer and the Type 3 David version, but there's no information about a Type 2. Suddenly, a group of Davids surround him, so Joe has no choice but to escape with the rest. They all rendezvous back at the bunker where Joe confronts Jessica about the unknown Type 2. Becker then tells him that they first encountered a Type 2 when it pretended to be a wounded soldier screaming for help, then it attacks after you approach it. He then explains that Type 2 screamer aren't very smart and can only repeat the same phrases just like Ross. This angers Ross and begins to say, "Get off my back," over and over again. Everyone then gets suspicious, but before Ross can take action, Becker hits him with his knife. But the knife drew blood, which means that Ross was human, so now everyone is at odds with Becker. Eventually, the tensions simmer down and all of them leave the base and begin to head off to the Alliance headquarters. The journey back was uneventful, and soon enough Joe is back at his home base. He tries to make a call and Chuck answers, but somehow Chuck isn't making sense and keeps repeating himself. Joe is starting to feel that something is extremely wrong. He backs up and everyone does too, and when the bunker door opens, a fleet of David screamers comes out. Suddenly, everyone finds themselves in a free-for-all. They all fired every weapon that they have, but the Davids keep on coming. Joe then decides to use the plutonium rocket they've been keeping and fires it directly into the fuel tanks, causing a massive explosion. It was already daybreak when Ace recovers. He hears Becker screaming for help and he ambles over to where he is. Meanwhile, Joe is struggling to get up and remembers something Becker told him before. He tries to warn Ace, but it was too late and Becker attacks. Joe rushes in blind fury, but he's against a machine after all. Becker is a Type 2 and Joe's only choice is to use explosives. He checks up on Ace, but he's already gone. Joe takes Becker's CPU, which is completely different from the rest and in a non-human language. But when Jessica asks to have a look, Joe cuts her to see if she's also a Type 2. She bleeds and Joe is remorseful. Jessica, however, has already fallen in love with him, so Joe promised to take her to an Alliance bunker with a ship that will take them to Earth. It was a long and tedious journey, but in the end they both make it. The bunker is hiding in plain sight, disguised as a mountain. They both cautiously enter and discover the ship below. Joe has to remove a crane blocking the way first while Jessica heads below to prep the ship. He gets it working again but gets suddenly attacked by Chuck, which is actually a Type 2 screamer who took his identity. They both fight, and just when Joe is close to falling down on the deadly lasers, he electrocutes Chuck and throws him down. He goes down to meet Jessica, but they both have a more serious problem. The ship can only take one passenger. They both pled for the other to get in, so Joe decides to flip a coin and leave it to chance. But Joe covered it before it was revealed and strongly urged Jessica to take the ship. Jessica, with a morose look, tells him that she can't. And this is where another Jessica steps in, revealing that she's actually a Type 2 all along. Joe tries to escape but gets tossed like a rag doll. The screamer then boards the ship, but the original Jessica pulls it out. They battle each other out machine to machine, their blows echoing through the chamber. In the end, Jessica lost and Joe shoots a flare to no avail. The pre-flight check has commenced, however, and incinerated evil Jessica. With a minute remaining on the clock before launch, Joe checks on Jessica. She admitted that she has learned about love and has fallen for him. Joe says his goodbyes and gets in the ship and takes off. But in the darkness of space, David's teddy bear slowly starts coming to life. And we have reached the end of our story. Once again, thank you for staying until the end, and let me know down the comments below about what you think about classic sci-fi movies. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.